identifying and naming covert trauma patterns and signs. Covert trauma or abuse is often experienced at first in childhood, um, then in intimate partner relationships, um, sometimes relationships with narcissistic abusers. It is I don't usually use the word covert. Usually I use the term emotional trauma that we experience. But the very nature of it, as we know, most of us know, is that it is covert. It often isn't obvious like physical abuse. Um, those who have experienced covert trauma or abuse often report being called too much or too sensitive or even dramatic. Why are you being so dramatic? Why are you being so sensitive? Um, Folks report often being ignored or at times even laughed at when they voice concerns. They report being bullied or abused by people in power. And these power positions can look like parents, siblings, spouses, partners, even coworkers, or just anybody that holds power over them, a manager or director. Abusers are often use punishment as a way of control. That control could look like silent treatment, threats, destroying personal belongings, normalizing toxic behaviors by saying, you know what, I'm not perfect. Like we all make mistakes. Um, or asking to move on from the toxic events instead of changing or repairing the harm or seeking help. And often those who are in relationships with abusers or working for an abuser feel helpless and hopeless. The report, sometimes what I hear is that, the abusers are well connected. They have good relationships with their families or they have friends, and who are not aware, of how they show up in an abusive way. Um, and this often results in survivors being exiled in their experience and being alone in that experience because who is going to believe them? This person may have, again, be well connected. They may have a good reputation with others. Um, and so that leads to this aloneness. Covert abuse often exists in rooms full of people, around children in work organizations, churches, and religious communities. It is often not behind closed doors, but it is right in front of us. And then in terms of introducing IFS into sessions, each slot I'm going to be um, just kind of giving you a little bit of what it looks like to introduce internal family systems and how I address my work with survivors of covert trauma. And just kind of giving you a little bit of insight into anytime I'm working with covert trauma, I am doing so patiently, so compassionately. And so giving you kind of a little bit of insight into that. And so number one, and we've already named safety, making parts feel safe, sane, and more than anything else, in control, because often survivors feel very much out of control. So we begin by letting clients who have experienced this kind of abuse that we're speaking about know that number one, they are in the driver's seat. And I will say to them, you are in the driver's seat of this session. And nothing that we do happens without your consent, without your permission. I will often just remind them to recognize that this may even, the fact that they are in the driver's seat, that this may activate their nervous system. This may be the first time that they've been allowed to be in control of anything in their entire lives. And so, little bit by little bit, we're going to tend to what comes up. We're going to take it very, very slow. And I always want my clients to set the pacing of each session. At first contact with those who have survived covert trauma, that first session, I am asking, what do you need to feel emotionally, physically safe with me and in this session, in this work? What does your system need in order to feel safe? Almost every time I ask that question, I get a pause. I get an, oh, wait, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that question before. Not in a dental office, not in a medical appointment, not in my previous therapy appointment. No one's ever asked, what do you need in order to feel safe? And I think that that is so important to start there. And so we talk about that. And then, I'll say, well, maybe you don't know in this moment, but maybe think about it. Just keep processing. It's okay. You don't have to know in this moment. And so we have lots of time. And what you need for safety can change from moment to moment. And then we check in. I'll let them know that I'm going to check in around boundaries, around pacing. We normalize that they can pause, slow down, if their system needs to redirect the conversation, the topic. At any point, we can do that. They are never forced to stay in one position or on one topic. This introduces an early corrective experience, especially for those who've had their voice, their agency, their boundaries ignored in the past. So I am showing them what it means to be safe, to be sane, to be in control, and to have consent. Number two, it's important that we reflect back often. Even if they don't understand internal family systems, it's not really the modality. We want to make sure that we're reflecting back, that we model attunement, actively reflecting back their words and also their emotional tone. Pretty often I'm asking my clients, did I get that right? The thing that you're naming, the thing that you have experienced in your life, did I get that right? Is there any other way that you want me to hear that? Because I need their internal system to know that I'm following them, that I am in tune. If they turn left, I'm turning left at the same time. If they go right, I'm lockstep right with them. And then often too, for folks who have been ignored, who have been gaslit, um, who have maybe felt the impact of feeling the pressure to shrink or to hide. I will often ask, how does your system feel hearing what you've named reflected back to you? And so this helps all parts of the client feel heard, seen, and again, understood in their experience, which is so essential before we go deeper. And then I want to introduce support for discomfort and for all of the protective responses. Before any triggering material comes up, we explain that trauma often brings parts that shut down or disconnect, maybe by numbing, maybe by distracting, maybe by dissociation. They may become anxious or overwhelmed. They may even have a desire to leave. Even as I'm naming this, I'm thinking of one client that will say to me when they get really overwhelmed or triggered in naming the abuse, they will say, I want to jump out of my skin. And I love the honesty and the directness of that, because what that client is telling me is that this is too much. This naming, this experience is too much. This feeling is too much. And so we listen and we attend to it when it becomes too much. How do we do that? Often in the work with those who have experienced or survived covert trauma, I introduce breath work, invite breath work at the beginning of sessions and throughout, grounding exercises throughout. If they need to move, if they need to walk, if they need to turn the camera off, most of my work is virtual. Any stretching, also sensory orientation, things that offer comfort and grounding for their system, things that help them to regulate when they need to regulate. And we do this until their system is ready for deeper emotional work. Again, safety being the number one priority. Safety is the intervention at this time. Attunement is the intervention at this time. And consent is the intervention. So everything that I've named is with safety, attunement, and consent in mind.